least one comment. Somebody asking when I was going to do the next one. Well, here it is. Honestly, I just haven't been to the movies much recently. I think the last time I went to a theater was Thor, Love and Thunder. And if you guys saw my review on that, you knew that I quite disliked that movie. And between that and disliking Doctor Strange 2, the Marvel movies, which tended to be the only real movies I'd go see in theaters, I'd wait for everything else to go to streaming, haven't been luring me into the theater, right? So, I haven't been in a while, but last night, Sunday night for me here, I went to a drive-in movie theater to see Creed 3. It was a really cute little drive-in theater, like Americana 50s, 60s diner style. I'll put a picture in here in editing to show you guys. It was really cool. I had some onion rings. I got a chocolate milkshake, kick back, sit in the car, watch the movie, or recline the seats. It was a really nice experience. Now, if you've never seen a movie review on this channel before, there are gonna be spoilers, and I just kind of go, just a consciousness flow. I don't really have a structure to this review, right? It's just gonna be saying things as they come to me, so I can't really do a spoiler-free section and then a spoiler section, because I'm just kind of going off the dome. Now, background. I am a huge boxing fan, love boxing, and I love the Rocky movies, and I've loved the Creed films. That whole universe, I've really liked them. And as much as I love the Rocky movies, I appreciate how in the Creed films the boxing was a bit more realistic, a little more true to life. The fights were, unlike in Rocky, where all the fights would have ended by doctor stoppage by round 2, right? There's actually some real defense being played in the Creed movies, unlike Rocky just getting punched in the face for an hour. Now Creed 3. There were some things I did like about this movie, but as I was writing out my list of notes, which I'm going to reference here in a minute, I found that I had more negative things to say than positive things to say, which is interesting because I did not leave the movie with a negative opinion of the film overall. Now a couple things. I loved the way that they played up the interpersonal relationship between Adonis Creed and Dame. I thought that was a really interesting way you have the internal struggle that is materializing itself as a physical struggle between the two men in the boxing ring at the end, right? Now, Dame, it was interesting because overall, I knew that they were setting him up to be the villain or the antagonist of the whole thing, right? But I thought he was going to be one of those antagonists, kind of like Adonis Creed in the original Rockies, or what they did with Victor Drago in the second Creed film, where you feel for them. They're not just a monster, they're not just a bad guy. And I feel like for about 80% of the movie, they accomplished that with Dame. But then you have the scene with him on the beach after he wins the belt, and you have the revelation that he snuck somebody in the party in order to hurt Victor Drago so that he could step in and get the chance at the title. that kind of undermines that a little bit, not entirely, because you can understand his motivations. But he went from being a character that you sympathized with, and perhaps that you would even root for him to win in the final fight potentially, to being somebody that becomes a little bit less sympathetic after he wins the belt and you realize the circumstances under which he won it in the first place. Don't let me minimize this as my dog. Okay, this will be a little bit better. Sorry for that. So there's that. I'm gonna reference my notes here. Okay, I was gonna kind of go through my notes in the order I wrote them. In the movie, the first fight that Dame has, his pro debut, which is a title fight, which is ridiculous, of course. He's facing Felix Chavez, who is like the gem, the feather in the cap of Adonis's gym, right? Like Felix Chavez is the heavyweight world champion, this Mexican boxer. But what was really funny about that is that he is being played by, who's he being played by? He's being played by Benavidez. Yeah, he was being played by, I'm pretty sure that's Benavidez, right? Hold on, I pulled the cast list just so I can be sure. But I'm pretty sure that's who that was. Yeah. Jose Benavidez is playing Felix Chavez. Benavidez, I'm pretty sure fights at welterweight. Let me double check. But I think he fights in the same weight class as Bud Crawford. Yeah, he fights at welterweight. So he's fighting at 145. And they have him portraying a heavyweight boxer. Right? Which is just, it's ridiculous even seeing it on screen, because when you see him across the ring from Jonathan Majors, who was fantastic in this movie, the size difference is just absolutely, it's extremely noticeable, and it's ridiculous. I know that they like using professional boxers in this. Like, for instance, they have Tony Bellew as the guy Conlon, I can't remember his first name, but Conlon, who was the opponent in the first film, and also the person Creed fought as like his retirement fight at the beginning of this film. So they like using boxers, but I feel like they should have got an actual heavyweight, right? Because he just looked ridiculous in there, and it was very unbelievable. And honestly, a thought that I had that I think could have made that both more believable visually and maybe make more sense for the story is that if after Creed retired, he had brought in Victor Drago into his gym and was training up Drago to, kind of become the champion after he beat Drago in the second film. Because, like, there wasn't bad blood between them, they kind of understood each other's position. And in this film, you see that he's, like, working out contracts with Drago, and he even has Drago come in to spar with him when he's getting ready to fight Dame for the final fight, right? So I thought it would make more sense if he had been training up Drago to be the heavyweight champ, or was the heavyweight champ. Drago was at Creed's gym, and then when Dame comes in, if he beats Drago the same way that he beat Chavez, where he kind of just like tears through him and beats him pretty easily, we saw in Creed 2 how much Adonis Creed struggled to beat Drago. So it kind of put things into perspective, and we'd have a frame of reference instead of him beating this guy that we as an audience do not care about, because because we didn't see him until this movie. That's just a thought I had. But with that fight, I liked sort of the boxing references, the sort of allusions, because when they have Felix Chavez come out, he's very performative. He has smoke and music and performers and like a whole thing, like you see with a lot of professional boxers now. But when Dame came out to fight him, it was just him in a plain robe, plain trunks, with just a song, and he just walked to the ring and got in. And it kind of reminded me of what Mike Tyson used to do, where Tyson would just walk out with like a cloth on and like chains rattling, or just like barely, just something, but he just walked out by himself, no flash, no pomp, no circumstance. It kind of reminded me of that, and kind of showing that difference in, Chavez is doing it for show and popularity and fame, and Dame just he's just out there to work. And there was another one, and this is one I thought of just before filming this, really, is that when they were kids in the car, in the flashback sequence, Adonis gives Dame a ticket to Rumble in the Jungle. He's like, my dad got this, I wanted to give it to you, it's my dad's or whatever. And it was a ticket to Rumble in the Jungle, Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. And that really emphasizes to me the fight they have at the end, and also the message throughout the movie. Because when he was talking to Chavez during sparring, I think he said a couple times, he said boxing isn't about violence, it's about focus, timing, and something else. Control, focus, timing, and control is what I think he was saying. It's not about violence, it's focus, timing, and control. Whereas everything with Dame is 100% violence. Everything about him, he's power hitting, he's swinging hard, he's big and muscular. He's like Mike Tyson, right? Or George Foreman. George Foreman, power hitter, big, burly, mean George Foreman, right? And whereas Greed is Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali wasn't stronger than everybody else, but he outboxed him. He had better angles, he had better defense, he could slip better, he could, dance. He had better timing, better focus, better control. He wasn't, he was smarter. He outsmarted everybody. And that ticket, that Rumble to the Jungle ticket, that Adonis gives to Dame at the beginning of the movie, Dame cashes that ticket in that final fight, right? He turns that ticket in. Except for he's George Foreman, he's Big George. And Adonis Greed is Muhammad Ali. The difference in styles. Now, maybe I'm reading into that a little bit too much, but that's kind of how it felt to me. And if you watch that fight, Foreman versus Ali, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's see. Overall, though, like one of my biggest negatives with this movie was the pacing. And in my opinion, the pacing of this movie kind of detracted from the overall message. I feel like there's a really, really good movie in here, but I feel like it got left on the cutting room floor. And I looked around at some interviews and some articles and stuff, and it seems like there's about 45 minutes to an hour of footage that was edited out of this movie for the theatrical release. And I really wish we had maybe half of that back, if not all of it, because this movie felt way too short. It kind of felt just like boom, 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 boom. This movie, you never really had a moment to just sit with it. Like, Adonis's mom dies, and we barely get a chance to, like, feel that and, like, repercussions of that, because like his mom dies, then boom, like it's just right to the next thing. I feel like this movie doesn't allow itself or its audience room to breathe or really sit and think about anything. It just feels way too fast, way too short, and unfortunately that also affected the movie in the parts that you wouldn't want it to affect it in. Right, because I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, this movie is feeling really fast. Maybe it's because we're going to have a real long fight scene at the end. But the fight felt way too short, and the training montage before the fight was way too short. Go watch the training montage from Creed 1 or Creed 2 at the better one in my opinion. I think those are at least twice as long as the training montage in Creed 3. And the fight scene, it felt like it was all of maybe 10 minutes. If not, maybe 11, but it was like a 10-minute fight scene. Go look at Rocky 4. That's a 20-minute fight scene. Rocky 2 is about 18 minutes, right? But you didn't really see them in their corner that much. You didn't really see them talking to their coach. And the fight didn't really feel like it had any big dramatic moments. It tried. And I really like what they did. Now I thought it was round 3 because the first 2 rounds is all normal. But then after the second round, you see them looking at each other, it goes all black, the audience disappears, and they're fighting, and it's just them in the ring in a black void. And I loved that sequence. And that's happening, and then you see them, they're fighting, and then their kids fighting, and then they're fighting, and all of a sudden there's like the bars of a jail around them. And as they're fighting, like the cop lights are illuminating the boxing ring, and you can tell, like, as they're fighting, it's them working through all their past, it's them working through their trauma, and it's them like having a conversation with each other. But then when that sequence ends and they're in their corner, the commentary comes in and says that that's the end of round 11. But in screen time, that's the 3rd round we've seen, so we only see 3 rounds, and then the final round, so 4 rounds out of the 12. And I would have really liked to have seen more. And as they're fighting, and then Creed does get knocked down, he takes a big body shot, he goes down. But the thing is, there isn't even that much tension around that moment, because it feels like he gets up too fast. You don't have that. I don't know if you watched the second Creed where he's punching the ground in slow motion, or even some of the Rocky movies, he's on the ground and it kind of goes slow motion. There's people yelling and shouting, and then bomb, gonna fly now starts up, and then Rocky gets up. But that didn't happen here. I feel like he just got up. And then he took control of the fight, and he won, and Creed wins. And the fight felt very anticlimactic. And then after the fight, they're in the locker room talking, and like, their problems are just resolved, and that felt very anticlimactic. Which is why I'm saying, like, apparently 45 minutes to an hour, if they release like a director's cut of this or an extended edition or something, like, I would love to see that, because I feel like there's a truly amazing movie hidden in all those deleted scenes. But even though I did like this movie quite a bit, I have to put it as the worst of the 3 Creed films so far. I thought Creed 1 and 2 were both better paced, better told stories. I thought the boxing was better in those 2 movies. And in my opinion, like I said, this is the worst of the 3 Creed films. Even though I feel like, because of all the parts in it that I did like, it should have and could have been better. A couple things that I just want to talk about here before I go. They set up Dame is like this dirty fighter. When he's sparring with Felix, he's like doing little cheap shots, and then when he beats Felix for the title, like he's cheap shotting him, like he holds him and punches, he elbows him and stuff like that. But then that does not happen against Creed. I kept waiting for that to happen. Like they'd be fighting and he'd hit Creed with a low blow or do some move to like dislocate his shoulder, elbow him or something. The whole movie they were setting up Dame as a dirty fighter, but then it gets to the final fight, which is like the most impactful fight, the one that's the most meaningful to him, the one person he wants to beat, and now he's fighting clean. That didn't make any sense to me. Also, we see there's a couple things that get set up early. When Dame is fighting in the Golden Gloves, you see that once he's figured out his opponent, he turns to Adonis and he says, "Checkmate." And then he goes out there and, gets him. And then Adonis ends up saying "checkmate" to his trainer when he beats Conlon in the beginning for the retirement match. And I was waiting for that moment between Dame and Adonis, when Adonis would say "checkmate" to Dame, and he would get him with like a move, because he'd been watching his moves and figuring out his style and stuff, looking for those openings, which they also set up in the Conlon fight, because in the Conlon fight at the beginning, Adonis is boxing him and he sees that Conlon keeps leaving his right side open every time he's throwing, and Donnie slips to that side both times and he doesn't guard it. He doesn't guard it twice. So that's like the checkmate he figured out, and you have this slow motion sequence where he's seeing it open. Then the final round, he hits the opening, exposes the weakness, and wins. But that doesn't come back. I was waiting for Adonis to either say "checkmate" to Dame or to his trainer, and then we'd set up a thing where you see that Dame keeps leaving an opening, keeps leaving some sort of weakness throughout the fight. And Adonis capitalizes on that, like he did against Conlon at the beginning. But that doesn't happen. What else do I want to talk about? There's no Michael Buffer in this movie, which I thought was weird. We had two different ring announcers, neither of which were Michael Buffer. I don't think Gonna Fly Now played one time in this whole movie, meaning this is the first film in the Rocky franchise without the classic, famous Rocky song, which is a little bit disappointing. Also, this is the first movie without Sylvester Stallone in it, but honestly, I feel like he'd kind of run his course in the Creed storyline. Now, my only other two things I want to say. Creed's career is shockingly short, because he retires after the first fight of this movie. But what he fought Conlon, he fought Drago. We saw him fight Conlon again in this movie, and then he retires. We see him fight 3 times and he retires. It felt like, why are we already ending Creed's storyline? Then okay, he fights a Dame now, but they're talking about he's too old, like old man, all this stuff. And apparently they're making a 4th Creed film. I don't know what they're gonna do with that, but it felt like they should have made at least 4 or 5 Creed movies, and if this should have been the last one. I don't know where you go with this story after this, but I wouldn't even mind it if the Creed stories followed the same formula. Not the Rocky movies. You had 5 Rockies and they did Rocky Balboa, whatever, but I don't know, like, you see 2 movies of Creed in his prime. Well, not even his prime. The first movie is him learning, going from nothing to winning. 1 movie of him in his prime. Then you get retired. I don't like that. We never saw enough Adonis Creed. As you think about it, Rocky 1, okay, Rocky's up and coming, he loses. Rocky 2, he beats Apollo. That is now 1 movie of prime Rocky. Rocky 3, he beats Clubber Lang. 2 Prime Rocky. Rocky 4, he beats Ivan Drago. 3 movies of Prime Rocky. Rocky 5 is the terrible one that I can't remember, but I think he retires at the end of that. So we had an entire trilogy of movies of Rocky in his prime. We see 1 movie of Adonis Creed in his prime in this franchise. I don't understand why they had him be retired. If they wanted to have him retire at the end of this movie after beating Dame, okay, but I thought it was weird that he was retired, and I think it was a really bad creative choice to do that. I want to see more Adonis Creed. They should have made 4, 5, 6 of these movies, 7 of these Creed movies. But like I said, apparently they're making a 4th one, but I don't know. They were kind of setting up his daughter because she kept like kind of boxing, but she's so young in this movie that if they like age her up to where she could be a professional boxer, Michael B. Jordan isn't going to be able to be in it. They're going to have a guy who's like 10, 15 years older than Michael B. Jordan, so I don't know. But see, I have all these negative things to say, but part of me still did really like this movie, which is weird enough to say. Like, I don't know, I guess the negatives stand out for me more than the positives, but overall I did enjoy the movie. It's still a boxing movie, which I'm always going to love a boxing movie. The cinematography was beautiful, the fight choreography was beautiful. Michael B. Jordan said he took inspiration for anime for the fight scenes, and that came through in that final fight for sure, and I thought it was a nice choice, but I don't know, overall I think Creed 3, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Like I said, of the 3 Creed movies, I think 2 was the best. 1 was the second best, and for me, put Creed 3 at the bottom. But I think if we get a cut of this movie that has all the extra stuff they cut out in it, like if they give us a 3-hour version of this movie, I think that version would be the best, because everything was here to make an amazing story. But I just feel like it just was too fast, and I couldn't really get everything I wanted to see in the time they gave me to see it. But that's just my opinion. If you guys have seen this movie, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear any and all feedback. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this almost every single day. Till next time.